Today we are going to discuss Henrik Ibsen's play, A Doll's House. Ibsen was a 19th century Norwegian playwright. He is often called the father of modern prose drama. He is also considered the father of modernism. You might have heard the term modernism. Modernism is a term used to refer to heterogeneous movements and tendencies in different arts. The common characteristics of modernism include a disenchantment with traditional forms of artistic expression, radical experimentation, and questioning of norms. In D.H. Lawrence's words, modernism showed the world the possibility of living without believing in an official version of reality. It is in this sense that A Doll's House is called a modern play. The early features of modernism became apparent late in 19th century. But the movement reached its climax during the years between the two world wars, that is between 1918 and 1939. A few facts about Ibsen's life might throw some light on his plays. Henrik Ibsen was born in 1828 into a well-to-do merchant family at Skien, spelt as S-K-I-E-N, in Norway. When he was 7, his father's financial condition began to decline. Let us remember in this connection that financial problems are a major theme in many of Ibsen's plays, including A Doll's House. Ibsen's mother was a woman who represented sacrificial domesticity. She devoted her lifetime to her husband and children. Perhaps it was the condition of his silently suffering mother which inspired Ibsen's desire to redress women's powerlessness and question traditional female roles. When Ibsen grew up, he had an affair with a servant girl, and in this affair he had an illegitimate child. Illegitimacy is a major theme in some of his plays, such as The Wild Duck. Ibsen served as an apprentice pharmacist for some time, but he soon started writing plays. He also started working for different theatrical houses and was involved in the production of plays. His first plays failed to produce any impact. During Ibsen's time, European theatre was expected to showcase traditional family values, but Ibsen showed the courage to examine the hard realities that lay behind the facades of piety and propriety. For instance, he had the guts to mention sexually transmitted diseases in his play Ghosts, to the chagrin of his conservative audience. It is one of the last nails in the coffin of Victorian morality. No wonder many of his contemporaries found Ibsen's plays scandalous and disturbing. With a critical eye and fearless inquiry, Ibsen reveals the hypocritical morality and blatant injustice of European society. Thus, he inspired modernism not only in art but also in life. Ibsen's major works include Brand, Peer Gynt, Emperor and Galilean, A Doll's House, Ghosts, An Enemy of the People, The Wild Duck, Rosmersholm, Hedda Gabler, and The Master Builder. Brand is a story of an idealistic and uncompromising priest. His motto is all or nothing. Similarly, An Enemy of the People is about one man's struggle to do the right thing in the face of opposition from irrational masses. Ibsen presents strong women characters in his plays. Hedda Gabler in the play by the same name is an example. Rebecca in Rosmersholm is another example. In Peer Gynt, the dramatist goes to Scandinavian folklore for his material. Peer Gynt has strong surreal elements which blend fantasy and realism. Although most of his plays are set in Norway, Ibsen hardly ever visited his country. He lived for 27 years in Italy and Germany. Ibsen died in 1906. He was to influence many future writers, including Oscar Wilde, George Bernard Shaw, and James Joyce. Many consider Ibsen to be the greatest dramatist since Shakespeare. A Doll's House was published on 4th December 1879. The play was performed first at the Royal Theatre at Copenhagen in Denmark on the 21st of December 1879. It is written in prose. Structurally, it is divided into 3 acts. A Doll's House is popularly called a feminist play, but Michael Mayer, Ibsen's translator, maintains that the play's theme is not women's rights, but the need of every individual to find out what kind of person he or she really is. In other words, the theme of A Doll's House is the need of self-discovery and self-realization, which is common to both sexes. Ibsen himself maintained that although his play might have helped the movement for women's rights, he had no conscious thought of making propaganda. Nevertheless, A Doll's House became controversial because of its scathing criticism of 19th century marriage norms, which were uncritically accepted by both men and women. The plot of a play is enacted by its characters. The characters of A Doll's House are Torvald Helmer, a lawyer; Nora Helmer, Torvald's wife; Dr. Rank, Torvald's close friend; Mrs. Linder, Nora's childhood friend; Niels Krogstad, a bank clerk. There are also some minor characters in the play. They are the Helmer's 3 young children, Ivor, Emmy, and Bob; Anne-Marie, the nurse; Helen, a maid; and the delivery boy. A Doll's House was loosely based on the life of Laura Keeler, who was a friend of Ibsen's. Much that happened between Nora and Torvald happened to Laura and her husband Victor. An important exception was the forged signature, which was the basis of Nora's loan. When Victor found out about Nora's secret loan, he divorced her and had her committed to an asylum. 2 years later, she returned to her husband and children. She went on to become a well-known author. Now let us look at the plot of the play. A Doll's House is set in an unnamed Norwegian town. The action of the play takes place in the home of the Helmer family. When the play opens, Nora Helmer returns from her Christmas shopping. Her husband, who is in the study, comes out to banter with her. The couple discusses the family's finances. Recently, Torvald Helmer has got a job in a bank. He has become the vice president of the bank. Torvald expresses his horror of debt. This is significant because the play is built around debt which Nora had incurred in the past. We notice that in the conversation between Nora and Torvald, he treats her like a child. Having got used to this indulgence, she also behaves childishly. An old friend of Nora's named Christine Linder arrives at the Helmer's home. She is a childless widow. Now she is moving into the city to try for work. Nora confides to Christine that she once borrowed money from a disgraced lawyer named Niels Krogstad. This was for her husband's treatment while he was very ill. But she has not revealed this to him so as not to hurt his pride. She has been repaying the debt, secretly copying papers by hand. Nora asked Torvald to give Christine a position as a secretary in the bank. After some time, Krogstad arrives. He is worried that he will be fired from his job. He seeks Nora's assistance in keeping the job, but Nora is reluctant to help. Now Krogstad reveals that he knows Nora committed forgery on the bond she had signed in order to get a loan from him. During Ibsen's time, a woman needed a male co-signatory. The legal document would be valid only then. Of course, her father's signature was on the bond, but it was dated 3 days after his death. Nora admits that she had forged her father's signature. Forgery is a legal offense. Krogstad explains that if he revealed this matter to anyone, Nora's reputation would be ruined, though he himself had to act in a similar fashion in order to provide for his wife, who later died. In the second act, Nora pleads with her husband to reinstate Krogstad. The reason she gives is that Krogstad might publish libelous articles and ruin his career. But Torvald allays her fears. He says that he is firing Krogstad because he is not deferential enough. Next we meet Dr. Rank, a close family friend. Nora is about to ask him for a favor, but Dr. Rank abruptly reveals that he is in the terminal stage of tuberculosis of the spine. It is a 19th century euphemism for congenital syphilis. Meanwhile, Krogstad is fired from his job. He wants to use the bond with the forged signature to blackmail Torvald into not only keeping him employed, but also giving him a promotion. Nora explains that she has tried to persuade her husband, but he refuses to change his mind. Krogstad informs Nora that he has written a letter detailing her crime and puts it in Torvald's mailbox. Later, Nora tells Christine about her predicament. Christine reveals that she and Krogstad were in love before she got married to another person. She promises that she will try to persuade Krogstad. Nora has to make sure that Krogstad's letter does not reach her husband. In order to prevent this from happening, Nora distracts him, begging him to help her with the dance she has been practicing for the costume party. Nora's anxious efforts deserve pity. She even contemplates suicide in order to save her husband's reputation. In the third and final act, Christine speaks to Krogstad. She tells him that she married another man after leaving Krogstad because she had to take care of her sick mother and 2 young siblings. Now she has returned to him to offer him her love. This is not a tactic. She believes that he would not have indulged in unethical behavior if she had not abandoned him. Christine's words move Krogstad. He promises to take back the letter he had returned to Torvald. However, Christine believes that Torvald should know the truth for the sake of honesty in his and Nora's relationship. Torvald retrieves his letters and starts reading them. Nora tries to take her life, but Torvald confronts her with Krogstad's letter. He is enraged that now he is placed completely at Krogstad's mercy. He calls Nora a dishonest and immoral woman. He tells her that she is morally unfit to raise their children. He does not want to throw her out of the house, but says that hereafter their marriage will be a matter of appearances. Krogstad returns the papers and apologizes for his actions. Torvald burns the papers and he is relieved. Now he decides to take back his harsh words to his wife, and he says that he forgives her. But Nora realizes that her husband is a selfish, weak and narcissistic man. Torvald explains that when a man has forgiven his wife, it makes him love her all the more because she is totally dependent upon him like a child. He does not even consider the fact that she had committed forgery to save his life and the peace of his mind. Nora takes a critical decision. She decided to leave her home, husband and children in order to discover her true personality. She says that she has been treated like a doll both by her father and by her husband. Towel reminds her that she has her duties as a wife and mother. But Nora replies that her first duties are to herself. She cannot be a good wife or a mother till she has learned to be more than a plaything. She has now realized that their marriage has been based on illusions, fantasies, and pretensions. Now she has to face reality. The play ends when Nora leaves the house, slamming the door behind her. Under what dramatic genre can we classify A Doll's House? Is it a comedy? Is it a tragedy? It is variously called a realistic play, a naturalistic play, and a problem play. Ibsen himself called it a modern tragedy. It is a tragedy not because there is no reconciliation or reunion between Nora and Torvald. It is a tragedy because the social situation which the play presents itself is tragic for women. In Ibsen's own words, and I quote, "A woman cannot be herself in modern society since it is an exclusively male society, with laws made by men and with prosecutors and judges who assess feminine conduct from a masculine standpoint." Unquote. Now let us look at the major themes of the play A Doll's House. The most obvious theme of A Doll's House is the position of women in 19th century Europe. The social and familial roles for women are prescribed by an order of society called patriarchy, by a social order which is dominated by men. The only socially accepted role for women at the time was that of a wife and mother. This ideal is enshrined in Coventry Patmore's poem The Angel in the House, published in 1854. There is no respect for women's subjecthood. In the play, Torvald believes that it is a sacred duty of women to be a good wife and mother. He also says that it is the responsibility of the wife and mother to maintain the morality of children. Nora maintains that a man does not sacrifice his integrity, but hundreds of thousands of women have already. In order to support her mother and two brothers, Christine Linder is forced to abandon Krogstad and marry a richer man. Nora Helmer is in an economically advantageous position, but she also leads a difficult life. Her husband has a condescending attitude towards her. He calls her a little bird, a lark, a skylark, a featherhead, a little person, all diminutive terms. In taking the loan, Nora incurs financial and legal risks, but she is forced to hide the loan from her husband. The fact that the loan required a male co-signatory also points to the legal disabilities from which the women of the time suffered. This also makes Nora vulnerable to Krogstad's blackmail. At the end of the play, Nora leaves her home and children. Even this is not without sacrifices. Nora's abandonment of her children can be interpreted as an act of self-sacrifice. She has to leave them despite her great love for them. The play A Doll's House is built around a contrast between appearance and reality. As the plot advances, appearances prove to be misleading veneers that mask the reality of the play's characters and their situations. Our first impressions of Nora, Torvald, and Krogstad substantially change in the course of the play. At the beginning, Nora appears to be a silly and childish woman, but as the play progresses, we see her as an intelligent, motivated, and hardworking person. By the time the play ends, she has emerged as an intelligent and self-willed and independent individual. This surprises even her husband. The characters are also deceived by their long-held impressions of other characters. Nora has always believed that Torvald is a strong man and a loving husband. But the possibility of Krogstad's blackmail reveals that her idol has feet of clay. Now she realizes that Torvald is a selfish, narcissistic, cowardly, and morally feeble person. On the contrary, the seemingly villainous Krogstad turns out to be a much more sympathetic character. There are many other instances of this contrast between appearance and reality in the play. When Torvald discovers the reality of their life, he tells his wife that their marriage hereafter will be one of appearances. Perhaps the greatest contrast in the play is between the facade of a happy family life and the ideologies that are concealed by this facade. Behind the facade lie hard realities: the oppression of women, disregard of their personalities and aspirations, and serious social, legal, and cultural constraints. In other words, beneath the veneer of social approval lies what we may call the lie of life. There are other skeletons also in the cupboard of the play. For example, Dr. Rank has inherited congenital syphilis. He got it from his father, who led a sexually indulgent life. He is compelled to speak in euphemisms in order to keep up appearances. Financial problems are a major concern in A Doll's House. The very first conversation between the husband and wife mention family finances. Nora is relieved that she does not have to work as hard as she did earlier because her husband has got a promotion now. In the past, she had to forge her father's signature and borrow money for her husband's treatment. And Krogstad has to do unethical things both in the past and the present for survival. In the case of Torvald, the focus upon resources grows into a tendency to privilege money and material goods over people. His bourgeois notion of home has a monetary basis. His manhood depends upon financial independence. He says, a home that depends on loans and debt is not beautiful because it is not free. He switched jobs to a bank, and at the bank he deals with money. Nora, the protagonist of A Doll's House, is often considered an early example of the new woman. Another example in literary history is Sue Bridehead, a character in Thomas Hardy's novel Jude the Obscure. The term new woman emerged towards the end of the 19th century. It is used to describe women who challenge traditional notions of women's role in society, especially the roles of wife and mother. The term is often attributed to Sarah Grant. The novelist Sarah Grant used this term in an 1894 article published in the North American Review to refer to women who campaigned for women's rights. Many radical thinkers of this group considered the institution of marriage to be a kind of slavery. They denounced the notion that motherhood is the ultimate goal of womanhood. Nora in A Doll's House offers an antidote to the dominant ideology of patriarchy. In an age during which women had no financial independence, she earns to pay off her debt. It is she who generated funds for her husband's treatment. That she understands the business details related to the debt shows that she is intelligent and possesses capacities beyond mere wifehood. She takes pride in earning like a man. At the end of the play, she shows the courage to defy inherited notions concerning women's role in society. To 19th century Europeans, nothing was holier than the sacred covenant of marriage. So Nora's walking out on her husband and children was so revolutionary a gesture that it caused a scandal. One critic noted that slammed door reverberated across the roof of the world. Traditional duties of motherhood cannot hold Nora back. When her husband reminds her of the maternal duty to educate her children, she replies, "I must try and educate myself." This is the new generation woman who wants a world to respect her subjecthood. She wants moral and cultural independence. She wants to find herself and her role in the larger world. Let us now look at the symbolic elements in the play A Doll's House. A Doll's House is often called a realistic play. It is a realistic examination of social and familial conditions that lie concealed behind the veneer of a happy family life. Nevertheless, the play is rich in symbolic content. The title of the play itself is quite symbolic. Nora is literally trapped in an illusory doll's house of domestic comfort. Both her father and her husband have treated her like a doll, a child, a pet. The play suggests that Towel's attitude towards his wife is condescending, and this is not the right way to treat one's wife. Neither the father nor the husband recognizes that Nora is an intelligent human subject who is endowed with aspirations and the capacity for choice. Initially, Nora seems to be comfortable with the role of a doll. She does not resent being treated as a doll. She is quite comfortable in her doll-like existence in which she is pampered and patronized. But by the end of the play, she breaks free from the world of illusions and faces reality. It is quite significant that the play takes place around Christmas. When the whole world celebrates the birth of Jesus Christ, it's a time for rebirth and awakening for Nora also. She decides to go out into the larger world. She has to leave behind everything old and has to set out on a painful journey of self-discovery. The new year represents a new beginning for both Nora and her husband. In the new year, Towelt has a new job. He hopes to gain greater professional respect and earn greater income. Nora also looks forward to the time when she can finish the repayment of her loan so that she is free from the agonies of yesteryears. But by the time the play ends, the new year has come to represent entirely different things. Now both Nora and Towelt have to become new people. They have to face radical choices. Among the stage props of the play, we find a lamp. The lamp indicates Nora's need for some light in order to look at the hard realities of her life. Light illustrates Nora's personal journey of self-discovery. Both light and enlightenment function as metaphors for the much needed understanding of intricacies of personal and social life.